Hi everybody, I'm Thomas A. Fowler with Spine Press and Post.
And I'm Melissa Coons. On this month's Backbone Breakdown, we're talking about which authors made us want to write.
The first author that really made me want to write is also like one we talked about with my first adult book, which is Michael Crichton. After I saw Jurassic Park, I went straight to the bookstore and got the book, burned through it, and it made me start reading more of Michael Crichton's work. And I found it so incredible to see that balance of like awesome, highly researched storytelling. There was also really intriguing, real high concept. I remember when I read Congo for the first time, the movie was awful because they just rushed it as soon as Jurassic Park was successful. They were like, it made tons of money, go! Make all the Michael Crichton books into movies. And the book is incredible because the apes are just so much more intelligent and also like angry. Like they actually carve slabs of concrete and stone and they use that to like crush people's skulls. It's so much more intense of an experience, reading the book than it was seeing the movie. And I've always had a knack for science fiction, so as I knew I wanted to write science fiction, it was a really great author to just soak it up, to see that high-level entertainment, intelligent research, and also just cool characters like Ian Malcolm, and it's just, all those dynamic characters that made it such a cool story that got you really invested.
The first author for me is actually a young adult author, Lucy Cullyford Babbitt, and her book, The Oval Amulet, is a fantasy of sorts. It kind of takes place in there's a little bit of world building, and it goes back to a simpler time, probably similar to that of our like 1700s kind of lifestyles. And what impressed me so much about it, reading it in 7th grade when I did, was that she had a purpose and she had a message that she was using her writing to talk about, and it was all about gender equality and how men should be able to do what women can do and not be seen lesser for that. Likewise, women should be able to do what men can do and not be talked down from it or made to feel weak either way. And it was a big eye-opening to me that you could tell a story that really meant something without it just being for funsies and entertaining, that you could actually, it could be entertaining, but you can say something that you want to say.
Gotcha. Nice. Yeah, and then as I got a little bit older, my undergrad is in theater, so I was more focused on writing movies and plays. So I was reading a ton of those, and one of them that I really loved was Steve Martin, because some people may not know, but he actually wrote plays as well. And so his most famous one is Picasso at the Lapin Agile, and it's basically almost a one-act play. I think it's just a little bit longer than 30 minutes, but it's really just him and Einstein, Picasso and Einstein, talking in a cafe in France, and they're talking about genius and talent and what is the balance of it and how do you make that work in society. And it was great because it had Steve Martin's humor, and Steve Martin is able to hit those laugh out loud moments, but he also has such incredibly smart dialogue. And he does that in his movies too, and that's why Bowfinger is still one of the most like underrated comedies of all time. Just the fact that it's got all those big set pieces, like Eddie Murphy bolting across the highway, and the big concept of them trying to sneak in a movie, that they could try to make a movie without telling the star that he's in the movie. But the dialogue also had so many quick little like pieces of wit and humor and puns, and so his plays and his movies were very pivotal. So even though he's not or most of his plays weren't an author, it still made me want to write. And he still has written a couple books too that I've read as well, and I've enjoyed his plays and movies just a little bit more. It's more his medium, but his books are still really good to check out too.
That's awesome. Yeah. As I got older, it was a movie as well, but they wrote a book off of it, which is Finding Forrester. And in that film and book, I saw the film and I read the book, were both very inspiring to me, both because it inspired me to want to become a teacher and inspired me to want to be a writer, because he is this writer who had like the one shot at the great American novel and then never wrote anything ever again because he didn't like how people were interpreting it. And just his advice on writing about you just, punching the keys and getting it on paper. And it was this so much more artistic and passionate approach to writing where yeah, don't think so much. Just get it down and let the words flow, and it's all about the words, and then you can go back and edit it later. And it's that kind of passion that I was like, yeah, I want to write the next American great novel and not have anyone critique it.
Yeah. Everyone just needs to love it.
They just need to
blindly.
love it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
and sing my praises. So yeah. Well, it's funny too, because I had that transition too, where I was shifting from movies and plays after I worked in video production for about 5 years, and I decided I wanted to write a novel, and so I started reading a lot more books that were very author-based. So one I read that really changed my perspective was Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which is a little bit off of his normal like Western thriller kind of pieces. It takes place in the apocalypse, and it's just the story of a father and son. But what I loved about it was how it was written, because it does not have quotations, it doesn't have proper punctuation or anything. It's almost more like a stream of consciousness journal. So sometimes with dialogue, you have to kind of almost take a second to read and understand who's talking, for a second.
Yeah.
And thankfully he has plenty of tags and traits in the sense that the son asks tons of questions. So anytime a question came in, it was the dad answering what was life before this, how are we going to find more food, all that kind of thing. But it was such an emotional storytelling, but it also broke so many rules that if he hadn't been a New York Times bestseller, he wouldn't have been able to get away with this. If this was a first novel submission, he would have been rejected all across the board. But because it was Cormac McCarthy and he'd written all these other books, he was able to kind of play with the conventions. And it was really cool because he was able to tell this incredible human story all just from the perspective of the father and son, who you never even hear their names. It's just father and son. And also just play with the tropes of traditional storytelling and just create an emotional story that just rips your heart out and somehow also gives you hope. It's one of those sort of post-apocalyptic stories that you get very mixed emotions throughout the whole narrative. So
those are great.
Yeah, all the feelings, all the emotions. So
all the feelings. And similarly, Stephen King is an author who really made me want to write. As once I decided like this was a profession I wanted to take, him and his work and everything he's done is just phenomenal to me. I actually haven't read any of his popular fiction at all, but what I love about his career is the fact that he can write things like Shawshank Redemption and Green Mile and The Body, which Stand By Me was based off of, and then go write things like It and The Shining and that he's not pinned down to one genre, and that he can expand and he's not limited to writing into just one thing. He can do the Dark Tower series, and then he can write literary fiction on top of it. And I love his short stories, but it's that freedom and flexibility that really inspired me to know that I really can write everything I want to write. And
he also has a really good book on writing.
Yeah.
So if you ever want to check that out, you should too. Well, thanks for following. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff on the social media. I'm Thomas A. Fowler.
And I'm Melissa Coons. Until next time, get to writing.